Hi friends, it's Becky, and today I'm going to be making some stuff from the Modern Bohemian Jesse James Beads Magical Mystery Bead Box. This was the box that we just got in May. We haven't got our June box yet, but it's one of the ones that it had all of these like really calming colors. We had the Amazonite, we had some of these like Zen doodly kind of guys on our thing, and I originally was going to open up that box and just make a whole bunch of earrings because I was kind of feeling like I just want to make a bunch of earrings because earrings are super fun. And then I was looking at it and I said, no, I want to make a necklace and I want to use this fairy silk that was a bonus. It was an extra in our bead boxes. I'm going to use this on this necklace. It's going to go behind the neck, and we're going to make a claspless necklace, something that goes over the head. And I'm going to be using this Amazonite pendant that came in the box. I'm going to be using some Amazonite stones. I've got about 10 of them that I picked out, and these were some of the gemstones that came in this box. I'm also going to be using all 4 of our little Zen doodle hearts, all 4 of these kite-shaped beads, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of these like pinch end spacer beads. So we're going to be using some of those. I'm going to be using these rectangular bead frames, these long rectangle ones, but I'm going to use them in kind of a different way. I'm not going to be putting beads into them. They're going to be the connector between the necklace part and the back of it. So I'm going to be using that for it. And one of my favorite ways to do to tie on like either twine or fairy silk like this with a loop or something like that, and when I'm making a necklace with it, is to do a knot and then use a large hole bead to kind of go over and cover the knot and kind of help secure it in place. So I grabbed these 2 large hole beads from the box as well. So we've got those. Don't worry, yes, I am actually going to be making some earrings with some tassels and these like they remind me of bullets, so I think of them as bullet beads. So I'm going to be using those. And so we'll get to the earrings at the end of the thing, but these are all the bits that I've got. I'm also adding a head pin to this in order for it to work better as a connector piece. And then I'm going to be stringing my beads on some soft flex fluorite color beading wire. It is just a perfect accompaniment to the soft colors in this box. And I've got some 2x2 crimp tubes. I'm going to be using a chain nose plier, a round nose plier, my flush cutters, and my magical crimper. So that's the tools, and that's all the bits and bobs that I'm using to make this necklace. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this into a connector where I can connect my beading wire to one end and my fairy silk to the other end. And so I've already done one, so I'm not going to do this twice, but I'm using the head pin for that. I'm going to put this head pin through these holes at the ends of these bead frames. I'm only going to do it through one hole, and I'm going to go from the middle of the bead frame out so that the head part of the head pin is just resting there on the inside of that frame. And then I'm going to grasp that head pin right there, and I'm going to do a wrapped loop at the top of this. So I'm just going to bend over the top of this, the end of this head pin, over the top of my chain nose pliers. I'm going to make myself a little loop, and it doesn't need to be a large loop, so I'm going to just a little distance away from the tip. It's not right at the tip, but it's not right in the middle either. It's about halfway between the tip and the middle, which would be about 1/4 of the way away from the tip if I'm just, you know, making it easier for y'all to visualize. So I've got this wrapped around my round nose pliers with my loop, and I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers and the end of this, and I'm going to start wrapping this around because these head pins aren't the softest metal, it's going to be a lot easier for me to wrap it if I use my pliers than if I try to use my fingers. Usually for this type of head pin, instead of a wrapped loop, I might do a just a simple loop, but oof, I want to make sure that it's snug up against there. And I also want to make sure that I don't have any open loops for the beading wire to escape through when I connect it on there. So now that I've got my little loop connected to this bead frame, I'm gonna go ahead and give this a snip on the end. There we go. That was harder than it needed to be. And so both of these are done. And I think I want to make this easier on me and do my connection first before I do my bead stringing. So I don't want my bead stringing to be on the ends of these because that's going to make it just a little more difficult when I'm tying my knots. So I'm going to find the middle of my fairy silk. I'm going to slide down to the middle of it, and that's where I'm going to put one end through the bead frame, like this. And I'm just going to do an overhead knot right here at the top of it. Go around my finger, slide that off so I've got a little loop, and then I'm going to push that end of my fairy silk through and then pull that end through. And then I'm going to scooch that knot up to the end of there. I'm going to just tighten that up. And where are my large hole beads? So I'm going to put both ends of this through that, and actually let's put both of them on here because by the time I get done tying the other end, I'm going to want this to already be on here. So let's put both of them in through here. All right. And this one, I'm going to slide down here to the end and just wedge it onto or over this knot. All right, so it's right there, decorative. This other end, I'm going to straighten that out a little bit. I'm going to take this other end, pass one end through, actually let's just pass both of them through. There we go. Then I'm going to tie this with an overhead knot here. And on this end, I don't need to do it on this one, but on this end, I am going to, before I tighten this, just right here, I'm going to put a little dollop of glue because that'll help hold the bits of fabric together. Oh, was this the bottle that I needed to get rid of because it was empty? I think that might have been my empty one. Let me grab a different glue. You can use E6000, you can use this 3-in-1, you can use any of the glues. It's just going to keep this from unraveling. All right. Now that glue is in there. Now I'm going to pull it tight like that. Over that knot. Then I'm going to put these ends back through this bead, if I can get them. If they don't go through like that, you might use your pliers to kind of push them through. They don't go through on their own. And this will help hold, again, that knot in place. And I'm just going to take my scissors and trim off my little bits here. Just these extra bits, not this bit. Like I said, these are not my fabric scissors. All right. If you want to, you can do another little dollop of glue up there. I'm not going to. I'm going to go ahead and leave this just like that. And that is going to be the back of my necklace. In the front of my necklace, I am going to string on now using this wire. Let me get this planned out a little bit. I had an idea in my head, and I'd like to make sure that it is going to work. Right. I think there might have been that one there. Yes, okay, that's a good little build out. So let's do these metal bits there, this metal bit there. This is metal, so I'm not going to put something between that one and there. I am going to add that there, not there. Okay, I like this. I'm just planning it out so that the stringing goes faster. And I don't have to restring it or decide, no, I don't like it as I go through. So that's how it's gonna go. So I'm gonna start on one end and just string on all of them, or start on this end. Maybe I'll start on this end. That might work better. But yeah, this is just a really, really fun bead box. I really have been enjoying these lately. And this one is more like, sometimes you get super cutesy ones, and this one was more like just very like classy kind of pieces that you can put together, but are still really individual. Like, how many places are you going to find these hearts? You know, how many places are you going to find these guys? And probably if I tried to, I might be able to find them somewhere else, but I don't want to because I already have them. I have them right here. And I have spoken before about my love of Amazonite. you know what, that is going to go through there. So I'm going to grab really quick just a bead to kind of buffer on either side of this bail. I'm going to grab just a thicker bead than this. So maybe a couple more of those Amazonite beads. Just right there. Yeah, I think that'll be good. I suppose I could have just left that Amazonite bead. Yeah, actually, yeah, let's without that metal guy, except I want to trade places and put this guy on instead because I really like how there's like little bits that look like sand in it. Okay. Yeah. That's the ticket. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, 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 yes. Yes. I'm very, very happy with the way that this is shaping up and the way that this is going to end up looking. Isn't it funny how you can sit down with an idea in your head and you're like, oh, I'm going to do this today, or I'm going to make that. And then you sit down again and you look at your beads and you're like, no, I'm going to make something else completely different. And that's what I'm doing. But I am not mad about it because I think it's very beautiful and I'm really happy that this is happening to me today because it feels really zen, you know, kind of letting the beads take me where they want to go and, you know, maybe directing a little bit my flow on that. I also made this bracelet from that same box. I used the chunky wood beads and then the smaller beads and paired it with these like amber colored crystal beads, and I thought it looked just really great together. And these are gonna look really great together too. It's just such a really well thought out box, I thought. Really well thought out. All right, I think this is gonna end up being one of those boxes that I use most of the pieces of. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes I only use a little bit of it. So I've got the end of my wire here and I've put on a crimp, and it's this dark oxidized silver crimp color. I thought that would be a nice little accent to kind of go with the black outlines on these beads a little bit. So I'm going through my loop that I created, and I could have just looped it around this this part here, but I wanted it to be centered, and I couldn't guarantee that it would be centered if it ended up in one of these corners. So that's why I wanted a loop here for it. So I'm bending the end of my wire back and then putting my wire through the crimp tube. And let's see, are we gonna go through that bead and that bead maybe? Okay. Yeah, we can fit all of those guys in there. So I'll make it easier if I don't have to cut off as much wire. All right, and I still have the other end of my wire attached to my spool. So now that I've got a little loop here, I'm going to take my magical crimper, and if you haven't seen these before, they're my favorite way of crimping because you don't have like 3 different steps that you have to do. You just have kind of 2 steps. The first step is centering the crimp tube into this concavity in the middle of it right there. You just want to center it in there and give it a good swish. And it smushes down just the corners of the crimp tube, and then you rotate it so it's coming at a different angle, and you give it another squish, and you just keep rotating it and squishing it from different angles And what that does is all of those corners that it was smooshing down, it smooshes them against the round middle, and you end up with a nice smooth ball of crimp. So there's no sharp corners, and it holds really well, and it looks like a little bead on there, so you don't have to use a crimp cover, and you don't have to worry about things being scratchy against your skin. I often, you know, I would usually not want to wear things that had crimps that were crimped other ways before I started using these. So just because, you know, I didn't want that scratchy wire against my skin. Oh, you know what, buddy? You're going all the way in here. Perfect. All right, now I'm gonna just cut the end of this wire here so that I have enough to be able to bend back and crimp. But for this, I want to make sure that this isn't twisted too much, this end. A little twisting is probably fine. There we go. So that it'll be a little bit straighter and it'll hang fine. It'll hang straighter on there. Oh, don't forget the crimp tube, Bex. I almost put it through this other loop that I created on this one without the crimp tube. So I've got my crimp, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm not going to talk you through the second crimping because I already did the first one. And if you need to hear it again, that's what the rewind button is for. I do that sometimes when I'm watching tutorials and I've missed something. I go back to, oop, my crimp is inside the bead. What are you doing in there, buddy? There we go. That's much, much better. It slipped inside the bead. All right. So now that I've got my second loop all created, I don't have any gaps. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go from this end because those beads are a little bit loose. They're not tight on the wire, so turning the beads might not turn that when I'm trying to get at it from different angles. There we go. That is done. And now I have a necklace, and I love it, and it's beautiful. Now let's make some earrings to go with it, because I was determined to, hold on, I gotta make sure it goes over my, oh yeah, it absolutely goes over my head. All right, perfect. That's gonna be fun to wear. And the nice thing about using something like this fairy silk is it'll be really soft against the neck, and with both of these strands and it being so wide, it'll help distribute the weight of the necklace a little bit better than like chain wood or something. So it'll be a really comfortable necklace to wear. Yep. So let's get these little bullet beads, and what's better than one tassel? Obviously the answer is 2 tassels. So I'm going to be stacking both of these tassels together with this little bullet bead, and I'm going to make one of them with you, and then I'll make the other one separately so you don't have to sit through and watch me do this twice. I've got some 20 gauge wire, and I'm just going to be making basically a head pin with a loop on one end, and then I'm going to stack this bead, make a loop on the other, and you know what I think I need? I think I need a bead. I have a need for bead. Let's get these opaly guys. I just want a bead right at the top. Just a little something for some sparkle. All right. I'm gonna stick these guys on here. I'm gonna make a little loop over here at the top with my round nose pliers, and I'm going to go for simple loops with these. So I just curve the wire around until it meets the wire there. And then while it's on my pliers, I took it out so you can see where I was at. I'm gonna rotate this down and just give it a little squish so that it bends the wire back a little bit, and that just centers your loop so it's not, you know, sticking too far out on one side or the other. I'm going to work harden this loop so that it doesn't come apart too easily. I'm just going to squeeze, give it a little smush with the flat part of my chain nose pliers. And that's gonna just hold it just fine. That's the beginning of, like, this is the eye part of an eye pin. I'm gonna slide my beads up and about a finger and a half down. I'm going to cut my wire. Now, I'm gonna want sort of a larger loop than this for these guys. So what I'm gonna do is, using the leverage that I have on this longer bead, I'm gonna bend this wire just right over the top of that bead like that. And then I'm going to select a point in these round nose pliers that is larger than the one that I had, so a little bit closer to the handle. I'm about a third, 2/3 of the way from the tip, 1/3 of the way from the handle. And I'm going to make myself a loop. I'm going to want to see where that crosses over. And where that crosses over, I'm going to cut my wire. And if you're doing multiple things like this, you might want to measure how much wire goes around in that one spot so that you're always measuring and cutting off that wire before you make the loop. But for this, it's just a one. I'm gonna do this twice, so it's just easier for me to make the loop this way. There we go. I'm giving it another healthy smush with my chain nose pliers on the flat part. So that is a loop-de-loop that isn't going anywhere and isn't gonna do anything. So now I've got my loop up here. I can put my ear wire on it and then close that. There we go. And then here with this other loop, where are we? I think I need to change the orientation of my loops, because both of these loops, if I hold this in this direction, you can see the circle on them. I want one of them to disappear into a line. So I'm going to hold one of these loops in these pliers and the other loop in these other pliers, and see how they're kind of parallel to each other, or like that. I'm just going to turn them so they're perpendicular so they make a cross. And that changed the orientation of my loops so that now when I put my tassels on, and I'm going to need to swing that a little bit wider than that. So now when I put my tassels on, my tassels will be facing forward and you'll be able to see them being stacked up on each other, and they won't be off towards the side on the ears. Bloop. Tassels. So, earring, and I'll make the second one on my own. And necklace, this was a pretty quick project, I think, and fairly easy to do. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching it. I'll put a link in my description of where you can sign up for the Magical Mystery Bead Box if you would like to sign up for that. It is a monthly bead box, and it's usually very thoughtfully curated. One of the things Jesse James Beads excels at is making it an experience. And this is like a spa day sort of experience, just with how peaceful and relaxing and wonderful this was, and I've really enjoyed it. Anyway, I will talk with you later. Have a great night. Bye.